Hey, welcome back to the Ready State. Controversial idea. Back rounding is more about your body solving a mechanical position problem when you're pulling something heavy off the ground than it is back weakness or even potentially mobility. Now, or range of motion. So when we're getting athletes comfortable with pulling off the ground, or what we like to say is pushing, right? It's really a push through the floor. One of the things that the old powerlifters would say was, hey, see if you can get your quads on early. The earlier you can get your quads on, the better. And that's one of those cues that's really advanced and really nuanced, and took me a long time to feel what they were talking about. One of the things that we know is that we're trying to get people to press through the floor with even pressure between the ball of the foot and the heel. So can I find that reference position, and then during my setup, or even my pressurizing and tensioning through the system, can I maintain that balance between the ball of the foot and the heel? That constant pressure will automatically derive better intramuscular coordination between quads and hamstrings. Now, one of the things that we know is that if you're missing some ankle range of motion, and I ask you to set up with a little bit more knees forward, and you don't have knees forward to give, then you're gonna have to set up with a much higher back pull. We are looking for, and you'll see that the best pullers in the world right now are setting up with, Hall is a great example of this, but with a much more knee forward position. It looks like the first part is a really high squat, almost like a trap bar squat. We've got the knees much more forward. They're not as verticalized in the shin, right? And the reason I suspect that's happening is that they're figuring out they obviously can keep some better mechanics, but this is a really strong push. Quads like Rob, all the kids out there who are big pullers, they all have gigantic quads for a reason, and that quad is part of that system that's pushing through the ground, taking that hip to more full extension, right? So one of the things that we see is that if I'm missing ankle range of motion, or I set up with a really vertical shin, the issue with this position, and notice that I don't have any weight on my heels here. My weight is off my toe. And so you'll see people trying to create systems of tension. They'll lift the toes up off the ground. Is that in this position, if my butt comes up, I physically don't have the mechanical advantage or even the balance. And so in order to solve this center of mass problem, if I round my back, notice what happens when I go from flat with a heel push first, no ankle range of motion, or I'm pushing through the heels instead of pushing through from the flat foot. I get to here and I don't have any choices. And you'll see this wobbling here, but oftentimes you'll see this reversal, and that reversal is sending my knees forward and giving me a chance to get my quads back on. Even if you see people hitch, they will hitch into a position where, once again, quads become part of the game. So one of the ways that we're working on trying to untangle this mess of pushing big weights off the ground, pulling big weights off the ground, is if we can get our athletes into positions where they can push more effectively, we don't see rounding happen. It just doesn't happen anymore. Once athletes get locked in, they can grind. But if their weight shifts to the heels during that push, they don't have many mechanical options. Head will come back, shoulders round, right? And then as the back goes, this mechanical position allows for quadriceps to come back on to finish the system. This is a really, really difficult deadlift. We don't tend to see that. We tend to see athletes coming back, and that rounding shifts weight back forward. Now I can get more weight on the toe and get the quads more engaged. So as we're untangling this, once again, look at your athlete's foot pressure, make sure they have some ankle dorsiflexion, and that if you're seeing them round, understand that may be a symptom of how they're solving the problem, not organizing. And it's going to be really difficult for them to learn how to unround unless you come back to that foot pressure and start getting those quads on. Best athletes in the world are building a lot of tension here and getting the quads on so that and then in this position, there's no chance to round. As soon as I end up here, in order to get the quads back on, I'll surrender the low back to keep the mechanics alive. Some thoughts on deadlifting. See you guys tomorrow.